that Kenya has a number of 46,639 street families and street children, out of which 72.45% are male and an additional 27.65% being female. There are a number of challenges. The right of children in Kenya is protected against all manner of violence, and that is enshrined in Article 53 of the 2010 Constitution. Additionally, the country has also ratified, among others, the Children's Rights Convention of 1989, African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. Good morning. This is KBC and this is News Check. That is a discussion that we will be having right here, and we would like you to be part of it. Remember, we are live on all our socials, including our website at www.kbc.co.ke, where you can follow up on what we are discussing and also get what is trending or what is being covered in the country. My name is Njue. Thank you so much for joining us. Lucy Mwaura is my colleague on the sign language interpretation. And of course, in the second hour, we will be looking at the truce. After the truce between the two leaders, how are things progressing? Is Wanjiko also remembered in the truce as well? We'll be discussing that a little bit later. But for this first hour, let's look at street families. And joining me on set now is Jack Matika. Jack Matika works for Koinonia community that is here in Nairobi. They have branches in Dagoretti, Ngong, and also in Rongai. Good morning, Jack, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, my brother.
Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
I'm very much grateful, especially to be hosted at KBC. Yeah. Yes, it has always been my dream to be here, so I'm very much happy. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Now, we are celebrating the International Day for the Street Children, and as Koinonia, you have been here around for a number of years. Maybe you can tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. First, as a community, Koinonia community, we are very pleased and very humble to be hosted in KBC. Koinonia community is a lay-based organization that was founded 1997 by a Combonian priest who is more well-known as Father Kizito. So Koinonia community as an umbrella has various projects within the capital city, that is Nairobi. We have projects in Dagoretti. We have a project at Ngong that is dealing with the girl child. The one in Dagoretti is for a boy child. We have another project that is in Rongai along Ataka Road that is dealing with a boy child. We also have another project that is in Langata, which is dealing with immediate children that we are almost now going to discuss. Those are street family. It is based in Langata. And then we also have a project because as you know, in Kenya we also had we have issues or challenges to do with the children living with disability, and therefore Koinonia community, with this great mission of advocating for the humanity and respect to all, we have a project that basically touching more on the people living with a disability.
And the numbers that we are looking at, over 46,000, and maybe now the numbers are a little bit higher. And the government, of course, tries in as much as they can help. And also homes like Koinonia are trying as much as possible to alleviate this. Because I've seen a number of kids that do escape home following maybe death of their parents. Some run away from violence in their homes. And even others live in the streets simply because their families are too poor to look after them. How does Koinonia now come in?
Okay, first and foremost, I would just want to also thank the government of Kenya. They are really doing great. As you talked about the statistics, the population of this innocent group living homeless in the street of Nairobi and in other counties, I think the government has taken a good step by coordinating with all the stakeholders that are dealing with the street families in the entire nation. And also the good policies of the best practice that the government of Kenya through the State Department, we have very good office, the State Department, which is a Street Family Rehabilitation Trust Fund, that is very much well coordinating these stakeholders to ensure that the right services is delivered to this innocent population. After saying that, as a community, there are various factors, just like you have said, there are various factors that are push and pull factor to many children that they find themselves in the street. One, as you said, it is poverty. And then sometimes also, my brother, I find domestic violence is also a factor that drive many children that leave their families and say, oh, I want to walk out from this family. Let me find a peace outside. And the street becomes a place for this particular child of 10 years who is tired of seeing mom being beat by his father when the father comes drunk. So that is also domestic violence, one of the factors that we have identified as a community. We have poverty is cutting across. We also have peer influence that also. Koinonia community has a well strategic plan, ways that we have a group of social workers that basically try to follow and bond with this group, this population in the street. And after good bonding, that is when we have opportunities to rescue them out of the kind of life they are living before, which is really pathetic. If you move to a street where you have almost 200 street children staying, these are people, my brother, that know nothing about hygiene. They know nothing about all the kind of drug substance they use. So it is always a mess. But thanks to various institutions, first government and other stakeholders that have best approach to reach them wherever they are, bond with them, and then take them out of this the street, bring them to a place where they can get basic human rights needs, and then they undergo kind of rehabilitations.
And it's a big community. Looking at the estates that you've talked about, being in Dagoretti, in Ngong, in Rongai.
Oh yes.
What are the numbers that you are talking about that you have currently?
As a community.
What is the number? Yes, as a community. And how many have you been able to rehabilitate?
Oh, it's really huge. I'll be lying to give you statistics now because we talk of Koinonia being in this mission for almost 35, 40 years.
All right. Let's look at what you have, now, the number that you have at the moment.
Okay. At the moment, looking at Kivuli Center, one of the projects that is in Dagoretti, if you go there, we have almost 40 to 55 street family that were rescued out of the street. Now in Kivuli, they are undergoing human formation, and some of them have been already enrolled to different schools. In this particular center, as you said, they are provided with all the basic needs that every child requires in the family. If it is clothes, if it is food, if it is medicals, and then Koinonia community ensure all these are provided to these children. Beside all these kind of services, we also try, the community try to trace the families and relatives of these children that we have, because at the end of the day, family is always the best place for every child to live. So once the community, through social workers and the psychologists, trace the families, and then they get to understand the problem that was there, and then Koinonia community, if it was the issue of poverty, Koinonia community will go there. With the little funding that we have, sometimes we receive from the government of Kenya through the Street Family Rehabilitation Trust Fund, we are able to provide some start some income generating activity in that particular family for some periods. Once we have seen the family the economical situation is really in a stable, and then we are able to move that particular child from our center and then reunite him back to the family. So that is how we also do our services. The children that are in our center, provided they all go to school in Kivuli, and when they return back to their families, we follow them in education. And Koinonia does not limit that it is only to your primary school. No, Koinonia still journey with you. You want to go to, you are capable to go to university, they take you there. Beside Kivuli, we have Anita that is in Ngong. We can talk about 40 to 45 former street girls that were living in the city center of Nairobi. And this is a group that we find, and we all know, they were as from 10 to 15 years when we go involved in prostitutions. So they are all taken to this particular rehabilitation center. Majority of them are enrolled in different learning institutions. Some are also, we are tracing the family to be reunited. We have one that is also in Rongai. We have 38 to 40 boys. And in this also, they undergo the same rehabilitations, and we provide the same services that we provide to other centers I've mentioned. We have one unique center, and this particular unique center, it is based in Langata, that is in Kibra, and it is the rescue center that most of these children first has to go to, because before you take a child to the center, to this particular home, this has to be a child that has been really prepared psychologically and is not using drugs. So we have a component that's only deal with the rehabilitation. Once the rehabilitation is done well, and then the child is transited now to this home where he can now be enrolled to different schools and is able to cope with the other children. In the issue of the disability, I've talked of a case, they have also an institution that is in Kibera and now also in Dagoretti, and it's also like we are also going to Kajiado. The issue of disability has been like, if you have a child that is disabled, it's like the family is cast. And there has been a lot of stigmatizations whereby that family no one wants to associate with. Koinonia community comes here to inform the community that living with the disability is not inability. That particular child can also be a leader in future. And therefore the community gives also opportunity and an avenue for this population to be heard of and also be given a space.
Yeah, it's a good thing that you've tackled a number of questions that I wanted to point at you.
Oh, yes.
On matters education, on how these kids have, and you also have an education institution.
Oh, yes.
And also drug abuse, because you cannot mix some of the addicts, and also you have to look after them before you can transit them to the larger community. Now, roughly you have around 200 families from all the communities.
Oh yes. Oh, yes.
And I'm wondering, because at the end of the day, you're just, let's say that's whatever you're doing is just a drop in the ocean.
That is true.
There are a number of institutions as well. What is the criteria that you have that we can take this family but we cannot take this other one?
That basically mean during the time that the rescue is done from different bases within the street level. Oh yes, I want to say people look at the street family as people who has no structure. That is not true. This particular population in the street, wherever they live, they have a structure. And you find in every base there is a leader.
All right. Allow me to interject, but we have to also cross over to the Kenya School of Government.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
In Lower Kabete, we are expecting the program, the Open Kenya Social Protection Conference 2023, and currently the one addressing the congregation is none other than Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and these images are courtesy of Citizen TV.
Welcome the President of the Republic of Kenya, President William Ruto. Mr. President. Thank you very much. Please, let's take our seats. Asante sana. Mr. Deputy President, Ministers present, Permanent Secretaries present, the Chair of the Council of Governors, our development partners and social partners, distinguished participants, good morning. Today we begin a series of important events to mark a week whose significance is critical for the people of Kenya and essential to the government of Kenya. Our bottom-up economic transformation agenda stands on the foundation of creating sustainable capacities and viable opportunities for the empowerment of people at the bottom of the socio-economic pyramid. A unique feature of the bottom-up agenda, therefore, is that each pillar of our economic transformation is deeply embedded in commitments arising from Article 43 of the Constitution, which sets our economic and social rights as fundamental human rights. Through our universal health coverage pillar, we are discharging our constitutional mandate to actualize every Kenyan's right to the highest attainable standard of health and to healthcare services. Similarly, the right to accessible and adequate housing, as well as reasonable standards of sanitation, are being realized through the affordable housing pillar of the plan for the bottom-up transformation. Additionally, our agro-industrial and food security pillar attends to the right of every Kenyan to be free from hunger and to have adequate food of acceptable standards. The right to clean, safe water is catered for through the irrigation and the water harvesting components of our agro-industry and food security, as well as the cross-cutting enablers of our plan. The right to social security, as already observed, forms the bedrock of the strategy and the foundation of our governing agenda. As such, it permeates every pillar and therefore affects interventions across sectors. The right to education must be observed robustly as a basic indicator of commitment to enhancing inclusion, effective participation, productivity of citizens, and transforming national competitiveness. This event, therefore, is important to all of us. I am delighted with the progress we are making in focusing transformational attention to the social sector, which is the backbone of sustainable social development. The paramount question to be answered in the course of deliberations during this conference arises from its theme. Number one, first, what are we doing to accelerate the development of an inclusive and integrated social protection system in our country? Secondly, what are our strategic options for the expansion of coverage and improvement of shock responsiveness in order to leave no one behind? These are the foremost considerations in promoting and advocating for an integrated social protection system that can achieve increased coverage throughout the effective coordination of diverse actors in order to focus our full capacity on the people. Our philosophy of development is people-centered. We must empower the people to effectively actualize their potential by taking full advantage of economic opportunities and to have capacity to optimally benefit from development. We are confident as a nation and as government that we can simultaneously pursue rapid economic transformation and social protection at the same time, and that ultimately we shall achieve both of them. Social protection cannot wait until 2030, when we will have achieved our economic vision. If it does, the development achieved at the expense of or in exclusion of social protection will be hollow and fragile. We must undertake both commitments simultaneously because the standard of social protection is a good measure of sustainability and the promise of shared prosperity. The other urgent reason is that at the moment, too many people cannot afford a decent living. They are vulnerable, marginalized, and at the risk of being left behind. 16% of Kenyans today live below the poverty line. The number of people living in extreme poverty peaked during the COVID pandemic, reaching 8.9 million people. 26% of Kenyan children are under the age of 5 are stunted. Undernutrition is depriving them of normal growth, development, and is robbing them of their full potential. Older citizens, orphans, and vulnerable children, as well as people living with extreme disability, have a right to receive support now, and it is grossly unjust to wait even for a moment, for whatever reason. And that is why Cabinet has now approved that from June 1, the social protection cash transfer money will be disbursed before salaries of public servants is disbursed. I know for a very long time we've had social protection cash transfer money disbursed 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe sometimes 7 months after they are due. The instructions I have given and Cabinet have undertaken and the Ministry of the Treasury have undertaken is that from June 1, before salaries of public servants is paid, cash transfer for the vulnerable will be paid. I think it is the moral thing to do, it is the right thing to do, because if we don't look after our vulnerable, we will be a society that will be judged very harshly. It is the reason why government is implementing various strategies to extend the safety net as far as possible. The reviewed National Social Protection Policy, therefore, provides a framework to coordinate interventions across the country that are being undertaken by a broad coalition of actors from various sectors. County governments, the private sector, multilateral organizations including UNICEF and the World Bank are among the government's cherished partners and collaborators in the social protection agenda. Consequently, the government established a dedicated Department of Social Protection and Citizen Affairs. The participation of multiple partners is highly welcome and appreciated due to the limited coverage of social protection interventions under such programs as social assistance, social security, and social health insurance, which face significant resource constraints. The government has allocated 28 billion to support cash transfer programs implemented by the State Department for Social Protection. These programs include older persons, orphans, and vulnerable children, persons with severe disabilities, the hunger safety net for poor and vulnerable households in the ASAL regions, and the Inua Jamii program. We are committed to effectively ring-fencing budgetary allocations for social protection programs and further securing them by ensuring their fiscal sustainability. Our journey towards universal health coverage is underway. Already, maternity services and primary health care are provided free of charge in our public hospitals. At the same time, people who earn low incomes, poor and vulnerable households are receiving much-needed financial relief from the introduction of subsidized health insurance cover through the National Social Insurance Fund. National Health Insurance Fund, 223,000 vulnerable households with bona fide NHIF membership have access to services including cancer care. Again, on this front, we are in discussion with stakeholders in that sector to actualize the commitment I made to the people of Kenya that we will make NHIF contributions affordable. At the moment, the lowest contributor pays 500 shillings. We have worked the numbers. It will be possible, beginning later this year, to pay 300 shillings and still keep the cover. Again, so that we can expand the number of people whom we can carry on board the National Health Insurance cover. Again, we are redesigning the whole delivery of health cover or health facilities. We are having conversations with the county governments, and within the next few weeks, we will be rolling out the program that will also make it possible for us to now pay stipend to the 100,000 community health workers or volunteers across the country, again as a means to bring the people at the bottom of the pyramid on board health services. Malnutrition and undernutrition are severely punitive burdens for children. They also increase susceptibility to other diseases and the financial cost of treatment. In 2014, the cost of hunger survey estimated that costs associated with underweight children were 13.1 billion, while those associated with acute respiratory infections, acute diarrhea syndrome, fever, and malaria was approximately 800 million. To provide comprehensive protection for young children, the State Department of Health, Social Protection, Education, and Agriculture will strengthen their collaboration and coordination mechanisms to serve more vulnerable children and secure their present as well as their future. Again, to make sure that all our children attend school, I did make a commitment, and we are in discussion with the counties, that all our schools, especially in our informal settlements, in our arid and semi-arid areas that have challenges to access to food, we have undertaken that every county government that provides school feeding program, we are going to match the funds as national government so that we can get more and more of our children to access food in school. I appreciate on this account the partnership of UNICEF and the World Bank with the government in the nutrition improvement for children through cash and health education program, economic inclusion. Inclusion, as well as the Universal Child Benefit Program, which is being piloted in Kisumu, Embu, and Kajiado counties. Beyond tackling malnutrition, these interventions also address exclusion by increasing the social protection cover of the vulnerable and supporting their economic empowerment to enhance resilience. Traditionally, the youth, women, and persons living with disability face tremendous obstacles in accessing opportunities to participate in development, that they have been virtually excluded from meaningful economic activity. The financial vehicle to deliver this inclusion and ignite vigorous economic activity among vulnerable and marginalized Kenyans is the Hustler Fund. And a lot has been said about the Hustler Fund. This is a fund that is now about 4 months old. We have disbursed 23 billion shillings through that fund. We have 7 million Kenyans who borrow regularly on that fund. And because we introduced a savings component, already 1.35 billion shillings has been saved by people borrowing as less as between 500 and 1,000 shillings. Recently, we included, even for those who do not want to borrow any money, we included a component in the last 1 month for those who just want to save. And already in the last 1 month, 7 million shillings has been saved on that platform. And I am encouraged that there are many Kenyans who are prepared to walk with us the journey of saving so that we can also reduce vulnerability to people and give them a chance to access resources when times are difficult. The financial other programs include the redesigned National Youth Service, and I will be making some statements about the National Youth Service and how we are going to redesign it. The Youth and Welfare Fund Enterprise Funds, as well as the National Fund for Persons with Disability. The youth access to government procurement opportunities, as well as the youth training and internship program, are also frameworks to facilitate the inclusion and empowerment of formerly neglected, yet immensely critical demographics. Again, as I made a commitment earlier this week, the internship program that we intentionally wanted to bring all our graduating young people from all our institutions of higher learning, that we must find a transition mechanism for them so that, and should be funded by the government of Kenya, will also provide a safe landing for our young people coming out of college, and hopefully it becomes also an intervention in terms of ensuring that citizens are cushioned from vulnerabilities that come with looking for opportunities for work. Another exemplary and promising collaboration with our partners is the Kenya Socio-Economic Inclusion Project, involving the government and the World Bank, aimed at diversifying social protection programs and transitioning them from dependency on government funding into income generation. Through tested graduation models, these interventions are presently underway in Taita Taveta, Murang'a, Makueni, Marsabit, and Kisumu counties. We have made steady progress in inclusive education over the past 20 years, when free and compulsory primary education was inaugurated. Over the years, free day secondary has been introduced to complement it. We have now implemented 100% transition and established a pathway framework to anchor tertiary education with emphasis on technical and vocational education in our TVETs. TVET is going to provide much-needed skills and innovation to power Kenya's industrialization, enable it to grow into a technical and industrial powerhouse. Necessary engagements are also underway to ensure that government provides Kenyan learners with high-quality education that will equip them to become leaders of the knowledge economy, who will turn the country into a globally competitive innovation hotspot. Although Kenya's social security industry is worth 1 trillion, it has low penetration at only 17%. Out of this, many are not saving enough for adequate income replacement. It is necessary to avoid foreseeable cyclical problems arising from a population that is deprived of financial cushion of savings. I therefore urge the National Social Security Fund, the Retirement Benefits Authority, and other stakeholders in both public and private sector to collaborate in formulating an effective contribution mechanism to mobilize adequate savings for every working person. I listened very carefully to the statement made by Secretary General of KOTU, and I want to thank our social partners for their participation and their understanding. We've had challenges. We've had a problem for the last almost 10 years. We could not implement the new rates that we had negotiated. But because of their participation and their understanding, I am now happy that it is not the case anymore that citizens will be contributing 200 shillings to NSSF. That from last month, every Kenyan now will contribute 6% of their pay, so that we can progressively build cushion, so that we can also eliminate old age poverty. Many of the people that we have on the cash transfer program are former workers, people who worked, but because the culture of saving was absent in their retirement, as you heard Dr. Tuoli say, many people do not survive the first 3 months or 1 year when they get out of work because they do not have a cushion. I am very confident now going forward we will improve our savings as a percentage of GDP from the current between 8, maybe 10, maybe 11%, when other countries like in the West are anywhere between 40 or 50%. In fact, some are at 55%. 55% saving as a percentage of GDP. We are at about 10. It means we have a long way to go. I am very confident that with the awakening that savings is not a tax, savings is not a burden. It is your money that you have set aside for that day when you need it desperately. And it is the culture we must build. Old age poverty is one of the biggest problems we have in Kenya. And it is contributed significantly because we have not built the culture of savings. And with the new program, I want to urge every Kenyan, even if you don't have a salary job, make it your intention to save for tomorrow. That is why even in the lending that we are using, even the lending we have in the Hustler Fund, we made a mandatory 5% saving. And in just 4 months, we have managed a saving of 1.3 billion. I am confident that with the new rates, with the new rates of our National Social Security Fund, we will be able to double the resources we have as savings in the next 8 or 9 years, to double what we have today. And we will progressively move our savings as a percentage of GDP from 10%, possibly in the next 10-15 years, to between 20 and 25%. I think we will be moving in the right direction as a nation. And I want to thank all Kenyans. I know we have fought in court but we have also negotiated on tables. And a combination of all that has now given us a way forward. I believe that the time has now come for us to actualize the Social Assistance Fund for vulnerable groups, as mandated in Vision 2030. The State Department and the State Law Office should liaise with parliamentary leadership to expeditiously generate the necessary legislative framework to make this a reality. It is now time to recognize our partners in this fundamental critical undertaking. Our county governments, led by the chair who is here, have emerged as focal points of collective action in social protection. Thank you very much, Madam, and your team. The World Bank, UNICEF, and the World Food Programme have been indefatigable and effective traditional partners of the government, as well as the International Labour Organization, Food and Agriculture Organization, the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office, and the Save Children Fund. Many private sector entities have also contributed, especially under the corporate social responsibility framework. I want to very sincerely thank all our partners for their immense contribution to the success of social protection in Kenya. I encourage more participants and more partners to join in this noble undertaking and hasten our progress to full social protection cover in Kenya. As a means and an end of sustainable development, we are investing in the people through social protection to enable them participate in and benefit from the economic transformation of our nation. This requires collaboration. It requires building a bigger coalition of partners, of Kenyans, of private sector, of the public sector, all of us acting in concert so that we can actualize social protection as the mechanism of ensuring that no one is left behind. I now declare the Kenya Social Protection Conference and wish you very fruitful deliberations officially open. Thank you very much. God bless you and God bless our great country. Asanteni sana.
Well. Live from the Kenya School of Government, that has been the head of state, President William Ruto, there during the official opening of the Kenya Social Protection Conference 2023. A number of things that the president has mentioned, but key among them is that the cabinet approved from 1st of June this year that social protection cash transfer monies will be disbursed before salaries of civil servants. That's quite a game changer. Also, he has mentioned that the NHIF is being redesigned to accommodate more people, including reduction of monthly premiums. Also, the NYS to be redesigned to also incorporate a lot, and also urged Kenyans to embrace a saving culture, saying that we are investing in people so that no one is left behind. And he has mentioned a lot of things that we have been discussing here, the welfare of children, and he has also talked about Save the Children Fund also being relooked into so that children can also benefit from that. He's talking about 26% of Kenyan children under 5 having stunted growth. He has talked about also affordable housing. He has talked about the right to education and the right to social protection. Indeed, just in case you joined us, this is KBC News Check, and we are looking at matters affecting the country and some of the things that are affecting the country, including how the street children are, or the welfare of street children, bearing in mind that next week on Wednesday we will be commemorating or celebrating the International Day for the Street Children. And joining me On the set for the last couple of minutes, we have been having Jack Matika, who is the program manager at Koinonia Community Center. And looking at what the president has been talking about, I've noticed that you are nodding to some of the things that he was talking about, meaning that they directly affect you and how you conduct your business. Can you talk about that?
I'm very much happy, and I think our president is a loving president. And I am very optimistic that the issue of the street families, something is going to be done. He talked about, when he's talking about the vulnerable, you know, and the structures on how this particular fund is going to be disbursed. I'm very sure the families that where all these children are coming from, now majority will be remaining in those families because they'll be having something, you know, in their families. I think that is a plus to the government. And as I said before, the government of Kenya, right now as we talk, they have a very well established state department that under Street Family Rehabilitation Trust Fund, which is very, you know, very optimistic on how to address this issue of street family. He also talked about Save the Children. Save the Children has been a protagonist in the issue of the right of children, and every time they network with different partners like Koinonia Community, engaging on how the issue of street family can be addressed, and also in these institutions, how can the safety of children be assured, you know. And then also the issue of education. Save the Children had been on the forefront of ensuring that children are given opportunities, you know, to go to school, might be a girl child or a boy child. So I think the government of Kenya and the other partners together, as he said, we will see a difference.
So meaning that he has mentioned a number of things that the government will be doing, and Save the Children has really come out. Maybe you can touch on government support. I have been interviewing a number, and I remember interviewing somebody from God Will Provide Children's Home, and he said that he hasn't ever received any help from government or even county governments.
I don't know if that was in the past, but as we talk right now, there's a lot of things, a lot of good policies the government have brought, and these policies are basically helping to streamline, you know, on how the disbursements, on how collaboration and network can be done. I want to be optimistic, and as I said before, that also the government are they are very keen on who, because if you look at the institutions, you talked about the statistics on the number of the children, and then if you ask yourself how many institutions are basically working to address this issue of street families, you'll find there's a lot of institutions, very many institutions, name them, and again you go and question yourself, ask yourself, out of these thousands of institutions, who can you trust? You see, you know, my brother, you'll end up giving money to Jack Matika, who is a briefcase owner, you see.
Your children's home.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then in the name of helping the street family. So the government is also very careful, you know, to understand who are we, you know, giving fund, you know, to address this issue, to help us address this issue. So I think it's a matter of integrity, it's a matter of transparency and honesty, and to what you do as institution. If you are doing the right thing, the government of Kenya basically, they are good people. They are good, especially.
Still on that,
yes.
Have you received any help from the government?
Oh,
and
yes.
If you have,
oh yes.
On what magnitude?
On what magnitude? Well, we have received good help, especially when you talk about the policies. We work very close with NCCS, National Council for Children's Services, and we work also with the Street Family Trust Fund Board, and not only in terms of money, you know, in terms of policy, what are the best practices? So the governments have opportunities where institutions you are invited, and they get people who will come and do capacity building to your teams. And that is one way of the help we talk about. It should not only be looked at in terms of money, but in various ways. Yes, we have benefited a lot as Koinonia community through capacity building. Also, in monetary, you find they disburse also money to organization. I will name almost like 50 organizations that I know through the Street Fund Trust. They disburse money to. And it is, I'll just talk to you about every institutions working toward the best interest of the people, the vulnerable that our president talked about. You should do it deep to your heart, and be honest and be transparent and carry the integrity with you. With that, you get support, not only in government, but even to your next neighbor. They will come when you lack something. So integrity it matters a lot.
Yes, and we have discussed a lot about finances, and of course the president has touched on a number of issues that border on funds and finances. But there is also another pertinent issue that the street families are grappling with. The issue of identity cards. As Koinonia community, how have you been able to deal with this? Because this is something that has risen up over and over again, and the government is trying as much as it can, and it needs help from institutions like yours. How do you deal with the issue of identity cards to children who even don't have families?
This is an issue that we have realized in the last 15, 20 years. And going to the street, you don't only find children, you find youth. So the youth are always left behind, and then children are picked. So what do these youth ask? They only ask you, please, can I get a national identification card? It has been a problem, as you say, and just like you say, other partners have visited and they have counted the same. We want to acknowledge it has been a problem. But as when we started, working very close with the chiefs around government, local administration, we have seen that there is possibility, because you find this youth, they don't have any birth certificate. And how are you recognized as a Kenyan? You must have something to show, that a document to show that you are born here and you are truly a Kenyan. And they lack these things. So we get information, we try to go back to their families, rural where they came from. We collect some information back to their families or relatives whom we can find. And then we put them together as Koinonia community. We write like acknowledgement letter that we recognize this particular young man, and we submit it to the chief. And we have chief, government, local administration that are very much willing to cooperate with you. And they are able to write to us also a government-supported document. And this document has helped us to access a good number of ID to the youth. So I think other institutions, partners that are doing the same thing as we do as Koinonia community, I just also encourage them to do the same. Let them work, collect documents that are necessary, and then they work close with the government, local administration, and they will have these possibilities.
And we have seen on social media, TikTok, on Facebook, and also on Instagram, of some of very gifted kids who are still on the streets. And help is not arriving in good time, because these people are gifted as well. But nobody has been able to get them and actually help them do more with their talent. And this is something that is arising each and every time. Look at the social media platform and you will see that. You have some of the gifted kids. I remember you, before we started the show, you were telling me that you have a success story. You have a doctor, a street child you picked up, and now is a doctor. Tell us about that.
Oh yes, like you say, this population in the street, people, when you walk in the street, you look at them, you think that this is a burden to the society, and these kind of people should not live. And so you find there's always very big gap. Forgetting that these are very talented people and very intelligent people. When you talk about talent, you go to different street bases where these children are. They are talented. They are those that sing well. They are those can do choir in the street. And there are those that are talented in education, you know, and sometimes they ask you, if I'm only given opportunity, I will do the best. And we have children who have now grown and they are youth and they are very talented. And they do shows. Some of them are musicians. And like we have one humble prince who has gone to Tanzania and met with the great artist, and now he's also making a foundation from there, and he will come and do something, you know, very great. And as you said, we have those that have taken education very important and they have gone to school. We have some that are doctors and some that are mechanic, you know, and they are involved in different activities that is building the nation. I met with Harrison, who is a doctor and also is working very close with this music, Kubamba, yes, with DJ Mo, and is behind the technical, you know, machines and all this. At the same time, he's a doctor, you know. And I think it is a matter of giving this innocent population an opportunity. Just like the president saying, you know, these vulnerable people, if us, you know, we don't say the president, you know, we keep on saying the president, oh yes, he's in the power to say that need to be done. But I think it is collective responsibility for all Kenyans. You know, he talked about contribution. If you want to see a nation growing to that level, it's not a president in the office too. So all these issues of street families, we Kenyans all together, if we join the force together, we will do it.
All right, thank you so much. Unfortunately, Jack, we are out of time, but I have been speaking with Jack Matika, who is the project manager at Koinonia community, and he has put into perspective a number of issues, and especially the street families are facing. And a good thing that the head of state, during his address at the Kenya School of Government on social protection, he has mentioned a number of things that the government is prepared and has lined up to ensure that we protect the social welfare of not only the street families, but also the elderly, the people with disability, and also the children. We're coming back with more. I will be now looking at the truce. After the truce, there are a number of issues that we need to be looking at. Of course, they have suspended, Azimio has suspended the nationwide maandamanos, and that has been welcomed. A number of issues that have come up as well. We'll be discussing that coming up next.
So from then on, I felt I wasn't the Jenny Lee that you remembered any longer. I didn't dare tell you the truth because I thought I wasn't good enough for you. I thought I wasn't good enough, so I asked Charlene to replace me.
Where's Jenny? Are you feeling upset after confessing? To Harvey?
You were a silly, clumsy young girl. But over time, you drew me in, and I couldn't help but be near you. Regardless of looks, your position, or any other factors.
I screwed up. Let me get drunk. I was dumped! Ruthlessly dumped by Harvey!
It is April. It is football made in Germany. Tuesday night, the 4th of April 2023, the DFB Pokal returns to the first quarterfinals in Germany. FC Bayern Munich takes on SC Freiburg in a heavyweight clash at 9:45 p.m.
Oh, what's the goalkeeper doing? And if there's one person you cannot give the ball to, it's the super sub.
Wednesday, the 5th of April 2023 will see the defending champions RB Leipzig clash with on-form Borussia Dortmund at 9:45 p.m.
Here comes Riemann to get the ball away from danger. It falls Emre Can's way on halfway. Emre Can! That is extraordinary. Absolutely stunning.
Catch these momentous times in football history live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1. KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
You're seeing your potential. Unafanya kazi nzuri sana.
Na tukilinganisha na zile recommendations ambazo tulipewa na Inspector Torome, we believe this is the right pitch for you.
Hey! Unataka nini wewe?
Unaniumiza.
Unataka nini?
Unaniumiza. Unataka liva mutaki.
Governor, there are rumors that you have another family.
Rumors that I have another family. Well, this is my family, and I think it's one.
What do you think?
To get married. How could she have left with that
peasant? Leave me alone with her. Just leave us alone.
No, Mr. Oligario. I have the right to clear this up. I'm with her.
I asked you a question, Zenaida. Where is my daughter?
I won't have a relationship with someone who's a backstabber, no matter if he's the manager.
This wedding of yours is the only thing that can save us from losing all that we have. Amparo is the perfect wife for you.
My soul is very sick, Father. It's on fire.
You tell me what's going on.
It was Fabiola, and now Amparo is doing this
I've
to you.
told you, I don't want to talk about this subject anymore. Get out of my office, go to the pool or buy her rags.
Back, and this is News Check. Thank you indeed so much for keeping it KBC Channel 1. And on this second hour, of course, we have a truce that actually yesterday business was as usual in various towns where we witnessed a lot of demonstrations. And something queer always happens. If you look at all the maandamanos that we've had, look at the Kondele one, look at the one here in Nairobi, Mathare, looking at Kwanjenga, looking at Kibra as well, especially in the slums. That is where we get all the heat, or a lot of damages, and that is why we have decided that we are going deep inside, and that is why we are hosting the MCA for Kwanjenga ward right here in the capital Nairobi, Honorable Francis Kimondo Kirago. Karibu sana mheshimiwa.
Asante sana.
And before we delve much into the discussion on as why so many youths, and especially in the slums, are being used for both good reasons, if you ask me, for both good reasons and also bad reasons as well. We first of all cross over to the coastal city of the coastal town, county actually of Kilifi. That is where it's Kilifi or Kwale, that Indiana, that is Kwale, yes. And we are having a connected summit that has been on since the day before yesterday. That was on Monday. That will be concluding on 5th, where a number of issues are being talked about. But for that, let's first of all cross over. I can see O'Brien is already on standby. Good morning, O'Brien. Kindly bring us up to speed with what is happening in the summit today.
much, Ben Troy, Njue back there in Broadcasting House. It is day 3 of the Connected Summit 2023 here, where great conversations are taking place around how to drive ICT and, of course, close the digital gap that still permeates within the ICT industry here in Kenya. The concept of smart cities has also been discussed here, and, of course, issues around the completion and accelerating the Konza Technopolis. Those are some of the issues, that are coming up here. And, of course, today we're also expecting to hear from the ICT companies on the proposal by the government to abolish the digital tax, which came into force in 2021. That is also a big event that we are tracking right here. But, of course, for now, we just want to focus on the digital or ICT infrastructure. And remember back in 2018, the Kenya Pipeline Company started working on a fiber optic cable from Mombasa all the way to Western Kenya. It was finally launched last year, and now we just want to track the performance of this fiber optic cable. Joining me on the set is Zilpa Abongo. She is the head or the general manager in charge of strategy and compliance at Kenya Pipeline. Thank you very much indeed, Zilpa, for joining us. Since you launched this fiber optic cable, and before we even get to that, give us an overview of what drove Kenya Pipeline Company into venturing into the fiber optic business.
Thank you very much. I know we are traditionally known for pipeline transportation of petroleum products. However, in building the trenches for those pipelines, we do need optical fibers to run the operations of our installation. So we started to lay optical fibers since 2012, and since 2018, because we had excess capacity of our 96 cores of optical fiber, we decided to commercialize it and sell it to industry. Since then, we brought in some of the most major telcos, Safaricom, Airtel, MTN, Jamii Telecom, you name it, the list keeps growing on, about 8 now, who then are using our optical fiber as either their backbone or their redundancy for operations as well. So it was part of a broader scale government agenda to digitize from previous regimes that led to government institutions such as ourselves investing in optical fiber.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that this venture today makes business and economic sense for Kenya Pipeline Company?
Absolutely. In fact, all our strategy going forward since then has been that for any new pipeline that we lay, we will lay optical fiber along with it, not only for our own data communication needs, but as well as for the country. And now with the 100,000 kilometers of digital superhighway that's expected and that has been inaugurated and talked about by even the Chief Cabinet Secretary, Prime Minister of the government, essentially what we're doing is synergizing alongside the private sector, the ICT authority, and the government's NOFB to bring on board capacity across the country. So as you rightly mentioned, from Mombasa into Nairobi and then diverging from Nairobi into Eldoret and Kisumu, we do have lines running. So we are then connecting with other government institutions to create exchanges for data communication, and we plan to extend into Busia and eventually, hopefully, do some sort of East African gateway into countries beyond ourselves. But we don't need to do that on our own. That's why the industry is here having conversations about how to connect our infrastructure and then lay that sort of basis upon which this digitization can occur.
Mm-hmm. In your journey of constructing this fiber optic cable, I'm sure you have amassed so much wealth of knowledge on how you're going to do the next phase. Can you share with us, some of the insight that you have picked up along the process?
You can do it yourself. It costs a lot of money. The capital investment that's required to do this sort of infrastructure is large. And it's also very important to listen to where the gaps are, because we do not intend to replicate where companies already exist. And also, technology is everything. It's pretty much the driver to everything. So even in our company, most of our systems are being automated. We run on our own optical fiber. So investing in it has enabled the company, shed off manual operations, reduce its costs, and therefore also further our agenda beyond the day-to-day. So what we would say in terms of the ICT space is there's a lot of players, there's a lot to do, and therefore collaboration really is the key. And where your money doesn't need, that dollar of yours doesn't need to be invested, find a person who has already done what you're thinking of doing and then see where it is that you can create that synergy, as I've said, because ultimately there's really so much more that needs to be done, from data centers to connections into the northern frontier. There's still the LAPSET corridor we're working on. So that's where we need to be thinking as an industry. And I love the fact that everybody that's in the sector is here, so that we see not just from big infra like ourselves, but in terms of software, in terms of the last mile, everybody's in the conversation. And that's what we're aiming at doing, is creating a structured framework.
Well, I still believe, and I know that, pipeline business is still the core business of Kenya Pipeline Company. But now you have decided to diversify into other revenue streams. How much or what percentage of your revenue is now being generated from the fiber optic cable?
We would say currently it's around 2%, but in the next 2 to 3 years it's going to really leapfrog to about 10% of the revenue base. But there's some critical infrastructure that we need to lay for that to happen, because, as I said, commercialization actively started in 2018, but the launch has been in 2020. And I would also say that pipeline operations, as you've mentioned, is still our core business. You will not run out of fuel because we're doing optical fiber. So this is just something we're doing as an aid to government's agenda for the digital landscape.
And of course, your pipeline infrastructure runs from Mombasa to Western Kenya and Eldoret. Do you have plans now after Nairobi to Western Kenya? Where do you go next with your fiber optic business?
As we said, we are working very hard to try and get this into counties, especially on the northern frontier, because there's a lot of abandonment that is on that end, and everybody is looking at it. We do not have to build networks there, but we want to create interconnection nodes. And then we're also looking at, as I said, the gateway into Uganda and into the Congo. So anybody who's willing to collaborate on that front, because we have a jetty in Kisumu that can do subsea cable. So once you land in Mombasa, get all the traffic to Kisumu, there's still an opportunity to go through the lake. And then in between, we'll be working on connections to different counties. So pick up and drop off from our line is every 2 kilometers. And then we have what we call co-location points every 50 kilometers. So we are available everywhere. Okay.
Thank you very much, Zilpa, of course, for sharing with us those insights. And of course, we are glad talking to you.
Absolutely.
Asante sana. Well, Zilpa Abongo is the head of, or the general manager, compliance and strategy at Kenya Pipeline Company, joining us to help us understand their strategy of investing in fiber optic business. You have heard it from her. We're coming to you live from Connected Kenya Summit. We are here until the close of the event, which is happening on Thursday. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Back to you, Ben Troy Joy, in studio.
Thank you so much. O'Brien Kimani, live from Diani, where the Information Ministry is currently holding a connected summit. And today they are talking about a lot on the fiber optic, increasing connectivities and businesses as well. If you look at the online businesses that are there in the country, on Facebook, on TikTok, on WhatsApp, on everything, it has been helped or assisted by the intervention of fiber optic in the country. And because of the interest of time, will allow us to be giving you more on that detailed report in our 1 p.m. news. But joining me again is Honorable Francis Kimondo Kirago, who is the MCA, Kwanjenga Ward. If you look at Kondele, Kibra, Kwanjenga, and also Madare, youths from these informal settlements have been used in demonstrations over and over again, not only in this year, and also in 2017, and sadly in the year 2007, where the country was in the brink of anarchy. But all said and done, a lot of youths from the informal settlements are being used by politicians to sometimes cause mayhem. But that is not the only thing that we will be talking about. We will be talking about the truce. And beginning with the truce itself, the president and former premier, they have agreed on putting the things on the table, everything on the table, so that it may be discussed. And Parliament, on both sides, have already started the process. And unfortunately for Wanjiku, the issue that came first in terms of the interventions that were made by the two leaders is not touching on anything on cost of living. We started out on IEBC, and that is now has been the topic of discussion. Mheshimiwa.
I believe there is a hidden agenda in this game. And if at all we can really be real representatives of Wajiko, the first agenda on the table ought to have been the cost of living. Because that's what made Wajiko to be on the roads demonstrating for the schedule after climatic changes. Everything became very hard and very difficult for the local Kenyans, and that's why they had to go for the maandamano. So to me, I believe the two good leaders, they are not really being good and fair to us as the Wajiko. Because if at all they'll have a dialogue, we even need those real Wajikos on the ground for the same kind of a discussion. Because you are representing me, but still my voice, that one of Wajiko really matters on that table. So I believe as they proceed, how I wish they can put a certain vacuum for the Wajiko representatives who can actually speak of that person on the ground, rather than their readers of whom I believe in a way they know their problems, but they have never felt the strength and the pain in it.
Yes, and for avoidance of doubt, you are an independently elected legislator. Which side do you lean on? The government or the Azimio?
I like to be neutral. Because I'm an interest of the people and they elected me with a purpose to represent them. So wherever I go, I always move with the motive of my people. What I really, my people in need of. If they're in need of this and the government is supporting this, I'll be there for them. If Azimio is opposing this because of a logical reason, I'll always go by that course. That's what Mwananchi sent me to do for him or her.
And why do you always think that these mandamanos, the informal settlements, is where a lot of youths are from, and that is where actually we find a lot of animosity? A church was burned, a mosque was burned, a school was burned, all in one area.
Yeah, I believe that a straightforward answer, this is where unemployment really counts. This is where we have got most of the idlers. This is where people, we can say they are less privileged and they have got no job opportunities, neither do they secure anything that they cannot be doing for a day-to-day living. Most of them are idlers. So once they call for this maandamano, they are 100% sure huyo jamaa ako kwa kijiji yako idle, doing nothing. And in fact, from the far look of it, ukiangalia watu si ati sana they are not interested in the maandamano. They have got hidden agendas behind maandamano. That's why you have already heard of very many looting in the areas around Muhidi Mweusi, the one that is located in Tasia. That's why you have heard of a lot of looting in pipeline in the recent maandamano ya Monday. Cause watu wengi wako jobless, so they have gone, they call it amboka, ama sort of a job. So ile maandamano ikitokelezea, they get that opportunity. It's an open opportunity for them to loot and get something of which, as I say, it's not out of their own will. It's out of depression and suppression by life. Yeah.
In the same light, Mheshimiwa, looking at Kwanjenga, for example, and I'm quite sure that whatever you've said really resonates with a lot of Kenyans. The rate of unemployment, and especially in informal settlement, is too high. You as a leader, these are the same youths who are going to loot. Basically, there is no mandamanos that in Kenya we've held peacefully, even back in the days. So in the same light, as a leader, or as part of the leaders from your region, what are you doing to ensure that these youths do not actually are not used for bad intentions? Because this is a fertile breeding ground for politicians to ask youths to do anything they want to do.
Yeah, we can only start to fix things from where they are. One, we can 100% agree most of the youths in our villages are dropouts. Most of the youths in our areas are, they are just but a substance of lack of education, lack of employment, so they are just there to stay. They are just there for hand-to-mouth works. So meaning wherever they wake up and you make sure that you terminate whatever they have been doing, because most of these Mondays and Thursdays, it means they are not doing anything. They'll have to look for that thing that can really facilitate for the living of that particular day. Meaning that person they'll meet on there, they'll have to rob him or even pokonya him the phone he has, the cash he has in his pocket to make a living for the particular day. Because they have got this kind of hustling whereby they get their daily bread, not somewhere that they are employed, not somewhere that they are starting tomorrow they'll get. They wake up like bats just to go and look for somewhere to get something to eat for the day. waiting upon God to see them through tomorrow. That has been the biggest issue as to why our youth are really being used by politicians. And little do they know they are just being endangered and putting their lives in so much danger. Yeah.
And as a leader, youth are idle in your ward, and because of a number of issues. What are some of the interventions as a leader?
As
Because
I've told you
the
before,
moment that we start the mandanos or informal settlements, we see a lot of damage, even to all the vibandas that are there. Some are actually from all these business people there do not come from somewhere far. There's people who
they're just
live
within that
there.
locality.
Yes.
So meaning we can only, the way I've told you before, we can only start by empowering those youth. We can only educate them. We can only show them this is the right direction and this is the right way to go.
Have you tried it yourself?
Yeah, I've already done it. In fact, I've got some few boys whom I've already empowered with mkokotenis. I've got few ladies and also women whom I'm also empowering with small projects. Though they won't cost me much, but the little cash I'll give to that trade or even that gentleman, it will really push him for an amount that until you want to feel it cannot do anything until. But to him, they have got very brilliant ideas. Out of that big pressure from life, you can even forward some even 500 shillings, and they start the Madiz is selling around the hawking along Mombasa. In fact, I've got over 10 to 20 hawkers whom I myself as Kimondo have empowered. Niko na kina mama wanauza the vendors who sell cakes with buckets. In fact, I will surprise you today that I gave them a capital of 600 shillings, 500 shillings, and they start a living. At the end of the day, they'll still earn 200, 300, of which to that villager, until it on account not money, but to them, it's a living. Even to an equivalent of even that money being subjected to paying a rent of 2,000, 1,500, because you can even get a room there for 1,000 to 2,000 or even 2,500, though it's a Mabati house. So we just need to put something that can really add value to those youths. In fact, after speaking to most of them, because I'm fond of speaking to them, sharing, I really show them this is the right direction. My people, let's not spoil our own community. And that's why you had in the whole of Mukuru Kwajenga, as they bypassed all those areas, they didn't do a lot of things because we are in good connectivity with those boys and girls, and we really agreed tusiharibu mtaa yetu. Goja maandamano ifanywe kwa amani, lakini tusiharibu area yetu. But other areas I won't talk, they really misbehaved and they really had a lot of mayhem here and there. But for my area, I can actually attestify walijaribu kidogo.
All right. And let's look at owning up, because whatever you're doing and whatever you say you are doing, all the leaders are not doing that. We have the MPs, we have the MCAs as well, who are on the ground, and especially in your ward, you are on the ground, and you have talked about what exactly you're doing. But unfortunately, our leaders are not doing that, and they are not owning up, because at the end of the day, these youths are being incited by the same leaders we put in place. And unfortunately, the government itself also has also had the share of the blame because of how the police have been handling the whole situation. People are not owning up on both sides. And we can see that also in the slums, nobody would want to own up. Either the police on how they conduct themselves, or even the demonstrators and the looters as well. So we have leaders who can do the same thing you're doing, speaking to these people.
I believe we have been having two directions, whereby some believe if at all we are doing this because we are right, the other side ought not to rectify us. But I believe we own our own people. They voted for us. We have to value them. We have to treasure the little things, some of the big things they are doing, and we are there to protect their businesses as well as their lives. So we want to be in the front line, pushing even a conversation with even the policemen. Though in a way, because I witnessed the recent maandamano in my ward, in my constituency, it was really a mess. Because the kind of pressure wananchi are using, the police force has also to fight back. And you can't fight back smoothly. You see this person targeting you with a stone, even getting that stamina to chase a police in a uniform. You can imagine the scenario. So I believe we need to negotiate, because the way we were moving, I don't think it was the right direction. Surely, even if most of our people didn't die, but they ended up being injured. They ended up losing job opportunities, because there are some people who really messed with wherever they used to go the coma. There are some hotels that were damaged. There are some areas that were completely, that really perished. So we need to come up with a resolution whereby in future we can have those peaceful demonstrations where our people are there to address their grievances, not taking an advantage or control measures. Tunaenda maandamano. Who can be these people? The way we do campaigns. As we campaign, we have got security teams. Meaning, those boys that want to come to control or take over the meeting, they'll be controlled. The same way, I believe before we do these demos, we need to have a certain machinery from the programmers of that maandamano, whereby they can be controlling their own maandamano, so that we can manage the situation. Hao wanaiba wanakatazwa. Hao wanapora watu wanakatazwa. Hao wanavandalize vibanda za watu, maduka za watu. Tukue na security ya kuwashunga. Meaning, if we are moving from here to a certain place, kwa hiyo area yote tuko na security along that road. I think that one, though it's quite difficult and quite expensive, it can be as well manageable, because we can only use our own people, because we can't use the men in uniform. Because it will be a battlefield.
Indeed, I totally concur. It's quite an elaborate plan. But looking at how the leaders have conducted themselves, I remember the minority leader, Opiyo Wandayi, and several other leaders, and also protesters, of 200 of them, they were arrested. And yesterday, being part of the truce, is that all the leaders, the charges were dropped, and all the demonstrators, there were also charges have been dropped by the Director of Public Prosecutions. Well, I saw somewhere in the tabloids where somebody is arguing, among those people who were arrested demonstrating, some of them were arrested looting property or destroying property, and now you've let these people go. How or who will be accountable for all this? Do you believe that the leaders in these areas where we get a lot of nastiness and a lot of violence, should they be held to account?
I believe in a way it's quite tricky. We are in a very, I don't know what to call it, but in a very certain kind of a situation whereby we are in a healing process, and it's an emergency case here. So we can forego some of the few things, but all I could just kind of request our government, why doesn't it look onto the real scenarios of those affected people? Like the supermarket that was looted, Naskia, what do you call it, Muidimosi in Tasia, and the rest of the businessmen who are looted, instead of just letting escort free those who perpetrated the stealing, we can forgive them, but for those people they won't forget. We can forgive them and let them go, but for those loans that those people are taken, they still have to pay. So when shall we add this kind of pain to those affected people? We can only lay a dialogue with the areas that those maandamano were conducted. We look at them afresh. We set a certain committee to look forth upon those affected, and we lay down way forward love, repaying them. Because wali affectiwa baada ya hiyo maandamano. Kama si hiyo maandamano hawangepata. The way we deal with disaster, I don't know how to put it, but we can still put it as a sort of a disaster. Because the person,
a number of Kenyans would feel that, Mheshimiwa, if at all Kwanjenga, you are the one who has incited people, I think you should be held to account. Because at the end of the day, if at all anything is destroyed, and you are the one who maybe talk to your people, then a leader should be held to account.
But I can actually tell you, my good friend, not in this country that one will happen. We can only negotiate from the reality of it. The linear perspective is one. Let that person be compensated. Because if we try to retry from where it started, the hell will just start breaking loose.
Yeah, because you see Mandamanos of our guy has been arrested.
Yeah.
All right. Also, Kenya has been viewed as a beacon of democracy and stability in the East African region and Africa as a whole, and has a lot of admirers, even in the international scene.
Very true.
We saw some of the hardline stands. I remember part of government, even leaders, including the deputy president, talked about, yes, indeed, we can have a roundtable discussion with the opposition, but on how former premier can exit the political scene. And I remember the Azimio now saying, we also don't want the handshake. We want all these A, B, C, D, and we want them done now. The international community came, of course, some bashing from the opposition. Where were you? Why are you not speaking about this? But they have played a key role in establishing a truce between the two leaders, just to underscore how Kenya is important in the region, and how when we sneeze, a lot of African countries also get the cold, including the East Africa region. I would like you to touch on the international players and our brothers and sisters from the West.
So I believe they did a good and a commendable job. For true, we needed a dialogue. As much as we are not talking about either the handshake, the way they are putting it, but peace and stability of this country is more important than any kind of a leader in this country. So I believe the common interest was one. Common mwananchi agendas to be laid on the table. The happenings that have always made this to resort after elections, I think this is the highest time we wanna lay them down and look at them collectively with Azimio and also the government side. And we come up with a resolution whereby in future, the same will be tamed as early as before elections, because we want to not like this kind of a repetition to be redone again. I hope you have seen the way things have gone just in a matter of a few weeks. Things are not okay. Kenyans are in shake. Businesses are shaking. Everybody is awake. There is a wake-up call to everybody. Hakuna amani. Haujui kesho utaamuka aje. You can even meet with those guys as they demonstrate with a very high speed. Mugongane na wao. So there are very many things that we have to look at. All I can say, wamefanya kazi nzuri na waendelee na hiyo maneno na saa hii, let them not do it halfway. Let the cake be fully baked. Tumalize hii maneno ya siasa vile itakuwa ikifanywa, tumalize mambo ya uchaguzi ikisha vile itakuwa inafanywa, na tumalize hii dialogue so that we can know the bitter truth. Is it the government which is on mwananchi's shoulders, ama there is something even the opposition can have a platform whereby it can be contributing. You are the government, but it doesn't mean because you are the government, it can be there to advise you. It can be there to show you the way. We have a certain character whereby we can be sharing between the opposition and the government, walking in the same path for the goodness of common mwananchi. And for the international bodies to be there as patrons to watch and also give guidance for a better and a brighter future to Kenyans. It can be better. We stand a better chance because we have always been at the forehead as the Democrats. So what is this something literal after elections which really comes and really spills everything to go haywire, to go on the other side? So we need to have a new look on it.
Okay. And of course, the president talked about bipartisan parliamentary committee to work through concerns over the electoral process. And I think that is exactly what has taken precedent over Wanjiko's demands as well, because Wanjiko wants the high cost of living to be brought down. But looking at what some of the leaders are talking about, of course, when it comes to parliament, some have argued that because of tyranny of numbers, UDA having the majority, they might have their own way. Do you think that that could be the case?
In a way, but all I believe is one. As these people were in Mombasa in the recent whatever, there is a time, I don't know whether it's Babawino who led the demonstration in Mombasa when the Wabunges were there. Do you remember that particular time?
During the induction.
During the induction. Because it was their interest. True?
Yes.
There was no Azimio, there was no UDA, there was no what? It was Wambunge. So onto this issue about the peace of this country and the way forward, our prayer would only be one to our own, our Heshimiwas. Kindly remember those people who voted you in to represent them. Set aside your differences, set aside about the political affiliation, and put forth the interest of common Wanjiku. And they speak with one voice about the cost of living, the future of this country, without indulging in Azimio or even the UDA. I think with the talk of it, if at all, and I believe our president was very lenient and sincere on it, we can really come up with a resolution. Because we shall not talk about UDA. Ni ile kitu Wanjiku anataka mbunge wake amrepresent na mwakilishe pale bungeni. Si mambo na chama fulani, kabila fulani. Because you never know about 2027, wewe ulikuwa UDA, utakuwa Azimio. Yule alikuwa Wiper, atakuwa kule kwingine. So let us come with something forward, yenye itatupeleka mbele na yenye itatuguide for the rest of the coming years. Na to the year supplies, next time you never know. Huyo mbunge ataweza kuwa mwananchi. So vile ungetaka kutawaliwa, guide show us the way and guide us the way forward.
All right. You're also a Nairobi leader, and some of the issues that Azimio have brought on the table is that they would want the subsidies back. Even the World Bank itself has agreed that mostly subsidies are untenable, they are unsustainable, and they hurt the economy. I would like you to chip in that.
So I would like us to agree on one thing. After the hardships, after the rise of the petroleum, everything dynamically shifted in all the countries. So for the time being, we can actually say the child is growing. Let's give him time for him to start and start working by himself. So the government is so new. Why don't we give it time as we follow keenly and advisably on it, and we see maybe come next year the point at which we can. Because calendar, even if we are more today, it can't happen. Where shall we get all this money? If at all we can manage, because we don't have enough money. So if we add on all those things, where can we really get that money from? So if at all we can just, we can only give the government time to articulate the things and the many promises they promised.
And on a sad note, last week, the country and a ward lost a civic leader. An MCA was murdered when he was stabbed. And I remember yesterday in one of the pressers, Court Secretary General, Francis Atuoli, said that now the MCAs, our leaders, need security because they are vulnerable. You are more vulnerable than I am.
Very true.
I would like to get to pick your mind on that.
Yeah, I think MCAs security is paramount. In fact, they are more endangered even than the MPs. Why? They are the people who are living with Mwananchi there on the ground. And remember, you still have got your own opposition in the same ground that you are elected. And in fact, you meet with those people on a daily basis. And actually, we can actually speak on a good note. You can't move away from your people. So meaning, if you're elected in this world, you are just hailing from this world. You just live there. Whereby even for the MP, in a way, it's not a must for him to be living in that world. And that's a fact.
Yes.
So for the MCAs, they are more endangered. So all I can say, it's very advisable. If at all they can be equipped with firearms, or else they can be given security personnel, whichever that can be cheaper.
I like the way you've talked about it being a little bit cheaper, because that was the next point I was headed. Because at the end of the day, the wage bill is choking the country. And if we talk about, we have around 1,440 MCAs in the country. If we even give them just 2 police officers, then we can look at the figures and know that the wage bill will not be tenable. And we have been having issues, including the CAS's appointments as well.
So for me, I would be very quick in making the decision. We can only make sure that we arm the MCAs with the firearms. They have got the licenses, and we make sure as soon as they are elected, they get their firearms, and they have got corrective use of it. They just go through the training, and they are shown the way to use them, and they are shown the way where and where not to. And I believe that one can be a little bit cheaper and affordable, and can actually be met along the country.
Let's go back to Kwanjenga. And the head of state said in all the informal settlements, of course, the affordable housing scheme, which has been scaled over to all the counties as well. And informal settlements are bound to benefit largely, and especially the young men and women we are talking about being jobless. The head of state talked about them being integrated into that system. They be the korogas there, the mafundis there, and one of the places to benefit will be in Kwanjenga.
Very true, but so unfortunate that they started with an area they call Lode A. They started with a place they call Mukuru kwa Ruben. So for us, our turn has not yet been launched, but we are still waiting for the same. So I can't talk anything in kind of employment to my people. I can't talk of my people being the data being taken. So we are still but eagerly waiting. In fact, I can actually commend the president and appreciate him for the well done proposal. And it will really go with that less privileged people. Because for the first time in this country, they will have a chance to own a house or live in an affordable, decent home. And in little sense, the way he did put the terms, you'll just be paying as if you are paying the rent. Because if at all they are told to pay for the deposit, they can manage. If at all they are told it's the mortgage way, the way the banks do, you have to deposit something and they don't have. So I believe it will really be beneficial to the good people in Mukuru, to the good people in other slums. It can really be beneficial to them.
All right.
As per me.
I believe that is your camera.
Yeah.
I know we are about, what, 6 months since we actually, you were sworn in as civic leaders.
Yeah.
And I'm quite sure the Wanjiko in Mukuru would like to hear what you've been able to do in the short period that you'd be in office. And more specifically, kindly touch on what you're doing for the youth, because at the end of the day, we have seen that these streets are breeding ground for politicians to use them in any way that I want to use them.
So on my side, I'm very grateful because my people have really been supportive to me, and the little kind of empowerment I've actually been offering to them. I've already told you I've been having some few mkokotenis, I've been having women whom I've actually empowered with nini cake selling, some nini madizi selling, and I've actually had at least I think out of my list I've got over 25 people whom I've really tried to network and connect in different companies and institutions searching for the job from personal level. Natembea now one-on-one. And I'm not tired of it. Nasi tarara, the way I promised my people, I won't sleep, neither shall I rest, till I make sure the livelihoods of those people who elected me, I'll make sure I'll have something they can really count on after the 5 years. All I promised them is one. Lazima maisha ya mwanajenga itabadilika. Lazima nitahakikisha hata kama sitamaliza umaskini, but nitapunguza umaskini pale Mukuru kwa Jenga. Hata kama sita make sure kila mtu ameingia shule. In fact, I've really had very tedious 3 months. Nikitoa watoto kwa manyumba, and everybody in Mukuru kwa Jenga knows. Watoto nimejaribu kutafuta sponsor in Meru, nimetafuta well wishers, nimetafuta even good friends and even companies surrounding my area, na wameshikiria hawa watoto wetu, whereby zile basari tulipewa 600 niliwapatia free na nikazigawa kwa kila mtu na kila kabila openly and during the day. In fact, for the first time, basari zilipeanwa bila kupigana, zilipeanwa bila kukanyangana, na zilipeanwa kwa kila mtu.
Okay, and there's also the issue of crime. It's also a breeding ground for crime, informal settlements. Apologies to use that word.
Thank you.
But it is a fact that they form breeding grounds for hardened criminals. What are you doing in terms of ensuring that a lot of you do not slide?
So with me, I've got a very good rapport with the area administrators, especially the area chief, the area ACC, the area DO, and we have been working even with the area policemen. And all we have been doing, we know those changadens, we know who has been selling bangi, we know who has been selling this and the other drugs. We have actually harmonized the situation, calling those people on board. And actually before they are arrested, they have always been warned. Wachana na hii mambo ya kuuza shanga, tumesikia unauza mihadarati, kindly don't spoil our kids. Before even they do the arrests. If at all they don't concur with that, with me they know very well na peanaga ruhusa mbele ya chief. Huyo mwenye tulimkanya asiuze shangana anauza, akishikwa asiniite. Huyo kijana tumemkanya mambo ya kuharibu vijana wetu na madawa za kulevya na bangi, ukishikwa usiniite. And that has always been my stand. 2, we have also been lighting the area. County haikuwa vizuri, lakini sasa imerudi back to normal. Mataa tumeanza kuziakisha each and every area, and we are looking forward. Hii mwezi ikiisha, every place in Mukuru kwa Jenga will be daylight late at night. Hiyo pia itapunguza to reduce crime na pia ku-engage our vijana wetu kwa constructive things that they can be doing. 2, I've already promised the area youth, come term 2, I'll be offering empowerment bursaries to them. For those ones who would like short-term courses, they'll get that kind of a sponsorship. For those who would like that kind of shortcut, maybe this kind of driving, this kind of short-term, like maybe like babbling, I'll actually pay them using the bursaries. And they are meant for even for those short-term courses. So they'll have that avenue and opportunity to enjoy, even if they don't have those secondary school kids.
You mentioned the short courses because the short courses could be a game changer. Driving, work, saloonist, and such kind of things.
And also for the boda guys who are always arrested on daily basis out of negligence. They don't have the license, they don't have the insurance. So we agreed with them. Come term 2, nitawalipia hiyo riding cost, then wangangane na mabe insurance.
Let me give you 1 minute for your closing statement.
Yangu ya mwisho ya kufunga ni washukuru sana wanajenga kukuwa na confidence na mimi, kunishagua nikiwa independent MCA, na waambia asanteni sana, Mungu awabariki, na kazi tutaendelea kuifanya na tudumishe amani na upendo na mbele iko sawa.
Thank you so much. That has been Honorable Francis Kemondo Kirago, who is the MCA for Kwanjenga Ward. There we have been looking at a number of issues, and mostly when you talk about informal settlement, we have seen cases in Kondele, we've seen in Kibera, we've seen in Kawangware, we've seen also in Madare, where you find this youth being used by politicians for their negative gains. Indeed, that's where we put a cap. It's about 5 minutes to the top of the hour. My name is Njue. Thank you indeed so much for joining us on this segment, and I'm now giving the baton to the Swahili desk with Kuruzi Mashinani and Tamrini. Thank you so much. Let's continue this conversation on our socials.
To get married. How could she have left with that Leave peasant? me alone with her. Just leave us alone.
No, Mr. Oligario. I have the right to clear this up. I'm with her.
I asked you a question, Zenaida. Where is my daughter?
I won't have a relationship with someone who's a backstabber, no matter if he's the manager.
This wedding of yours is the only thing